Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is going to be the fifth video of the programming fundamentals, and in this video we are going to discuss about the type conversion or casting. Type conversion or casting are actually the same thing. Okay, so nothing is different in them. They are actually the same thing. And what do you mean by type conversion actually? So type conversion or casting is the process of converting one data type to another data type. Okay, we learn in the previous videos, we learn about the int, double, float, etc. So conversion of float into int and the conversion of int into float or double is called the type conversion. During writing a program, we need sometimes we need the concept of type conversion, where we need to convert the integer data type to double, or to convert the double data type into the float. Okay, so this is actually the type conversion. Or so there are actually two types of that data type conversion. First one is implicit conversion and the second one is explicit conversion. So implicit conversion is something which is done by the compiler. So I think I discussed the compiler in the previous videos. If I didn't, so I am going to discuss what is compiler. Compiler is something which execute our code, okay, or check our code syntax, etc., and execute it. Yeah, in the first video I discussed about the compiler. So what is implicit conversion? Implicit conversion is something which is done by the compiler. For example, let me give you an example, and this is by the compiler, and that's mean it is actually automatically conversion. Okay, automatically conversion of data types. Okay, so in this example we are going to discuss about the implicit conversion. So what is implicit conversion? Here I declare and initialize a variable with the name of a, and this variable value is 10 and its data type is int. In the second 71 line I mentioned declare and initialize second variable which is b, and data type is float and the value is 15.5. In the third line I also declare the float data type variable with the name c, and the value which I am going to store in it is a plus b. Plus is the operator actually, which is given by the which is built in actually in the C++ or any other languages, and we will discuss about the operators in the next video. But in this video our main focus is about the type conversion, so focus on it. Okay, so here we declare the variable with the name of C and its data type is float. Okay, so here we are adding a and b. Okay, a data type is int, b data type is float. But when we are adding a plus b in the float data type, then what you think, what would be the data type of b and what would be the data type of a? Yeah, here is mentioned that compiler automatically convert int 10 to float 10.0 and then add. Okay, so here we are actually storing the result into float data type. That's why compiler automatically convert this integer a value 10 to 10.0, which is actually the case of float, and then add these values and store in this c variable. Okay, so that's actually a compiler conversion, or this is actually the type conversion by compiler. Okay, so this is actually the implicit conversion. Let's have an example, second example. So in this example I again mention the integer variable with the name a, and then mention second variable float with the name b, and I simply this is equal is also a operator. We will discuss in again in the next video. And okay, so we will discuss it in next video, but here the thing we are discussing is type conversion. Okay, so here what I am saying to the compiler, I am saying to compiler, store the a value into the b. Okay, this line this line mean is that store the a value into the b. Okay, so a value is integer, b value is float, but how the compiler will store the integer value into the float data type? Okay, so this is again done by the compiler. compiler automatically convert the int 10 to float 10.0 and then assign. This is called implicit conversion. Okay, so this actually a which is going to store into the float data type. So the compiler first will convert the int data type into the float and then store into the b. Okay, so that's actually the case which is done by the compiler, and this is the example of implicit conversion which is done by the compiler, and this is actually automatically conversion. This is the scenes which done behind the scenes. Okay, so that's actually the case. Here I mention about the conversion hierarchy. Okay, so what is the conversion hierarchy of implicit conversion? So first it's actually lower to higher, like first character data type, then short int, then long int, float and double. That is going to be the hierarchy of type conversion in implicit conversion type of type conversion. Okay, so this is actually the case, lower to higher. And the next one is explicit conversion, which is the conversion which is done by manually or by us. Okay, so let's have an example of it. Int is a data type and a is a variable, and we are storing in data type a value in it. Okay, so in the second part we are going to store a float value 15.5 with the name b, variable name is b, and the data type of 15.5 is obviously float. Okay, so in the third line what I am saying, I am storing the value of, okay, so first let me close it. Okay, so what I am saying, I am saying that I have I have a variable c which have a data type int, and I am going to store a plus b. What is a? A is integer type and b is float type. So here what is here I am not doing any manually conversion, so it is done by the compiler. And the compiler, what the compiler will do, same as here. Okay, not actually same, here is float but here is int. So what the compiler do, compiler convert this float value into the 15 and then add 15 plus 10 and store in this c variable. So this is the case which is done by the compiler. Here I am not doing any manual type conversion. So now I am going to do manually conversion, which is this. Okay, here what I am saying, I am saying that add a plus b, but first what to do, but first do type conversion of float into int. Okay, so I am here mentioning that b data type is float, first convert it into int and then add with a and then store it into the c. Okay, so this is actually the case in explicit. Okay, explicit conversion. Here I mention, okay, this can also be the case. If I remove from here, I am saying to a that convert the int a into the float and then add into the float b and then store into the c. But c data type is int, so here I also I should do the data type float for storing the float value into the c. Okay, so this is actually the case of explicit conversion, that we can do it manually. Okay, so this is actually the case of explicit conversion. So here compiler convert float b 15.5 to int 15 as we say manually and then add. Okay, so that's the case actually I discussed. B is the float value first converted into the int and then add it with the integer a value which is 10, then the value will become 25 and the 25 will store into the c, which is actually the data type of int. Okay, I also discussed the case of float here. Okay, so the main here I mentioned data loss. So what I mean by data loss, okay, here actually I convert the 15.5 value into the 15. So here is a loss of 0.5. This is actually the case in explicit conversion. Here data loss, it doesn't matter it's small or large. Okay, so here some data loss in the explicit conversion. but in the implicit conversion I mentioned that no data loss, here nothing get lost. Okay, so this is actually the key point of the type conversions. Okay, so what is the hierarchy of conversion in explicit? So this is the hierarchy conversion higher to lower. Okay, here was the conversion from lower to higher in the implicit conversion, but in the explicit conversion is actually from higher to lower. Okay, so this is the case: double to float, float to long int, and long int to int, and then short int, and then character. Okay, so maybe you are thinking what is short int, so I want to discuss it here. Short int actually is actually also a data type when we have very short integer and we want to store into in our program, so we can use short int. Short int memory is 2 bytes, 2 bytes, which is 2 bytes lower than the actual int. So when we have to store the value between which is small integer value, so we can store it into the short int data type. So this is actually the short int. Okay, so in the next concept, which is actually the last concept in this video, I am going to discuss is type promotion rule. Okay, so what mean by the type promotion rule? Okay, so here I discuss about the short int. Suppose let me give you an example. Okay, so here I am going to short int a is equal to 10, and then I have short int and b is equal to 5.6, and then what I am going to do, I am going to do some operation on them, like a multiply b. This multiplication is also the operator which I am going to discuss in the next video. Okay, so now I am going to do multiplication between a and b. So we are going to do a multiplication on the short int data types. Okay, short int data types, but the result may not get into the short int. It would be in int data type. Okay, it may consume 4 bytes in the memory, so we have to store this value into the integer data type. Okay, so this is actually the case. First we declare the short int variables. It's actually taking 2 bytes in memory, and this is also taking 2 bytes in memory, but their multiplication may or may not gives you a larger or small value memory in the RAM. Okay, so it may give you a large value which may store into the int. So we don't know after the multiplication what would be the value, so we should use int data type so that any kind of value we can store into the memory. This is the case of 4 bytes. Okay, so this is actually a type promotion. Let me discuss it. Some data types like character, short int take less number of bytes than int. Okay, here I discussed that int take 4 bytes, character take 1 byte, short int take 2 bytes. Okay, so when we are initializing a variable, very small value into the variable, then we can use actually the short int and character. But when we are doing some manipulation on it, some operations on it, then we should use int data types for storing that actual value which is we are getting after the manipulation or the operations. Okay, so these data types are automatically promoted to int or unsigned int. Okay, after the manipulation or the operation, it automatically convert into the int and the unsigned int, because they are performing some operations, and that's why their size may get increased. Okay, this is actually the mention here. Okay, so this is called integer promotion. Okay, that's actually the case. Type promotion rules, this is called the integer promotion. For example, no arithmetic collection happen on smaller types like character, short and enums. This is saying that when we have small data types and we can't do any operation on them, okay, we have to convert into the integer so that the larger value can store into the memory. Okay, so this is actually the case of integer promotion and the type promotion rules. So that's all for today's video, and thank you very much for watching this video. Allah Hafiz.